Few individuals in human history have amassed fortunes comparable to Andrew Carnegie, a man whose complexity matched his wealth. After selling his enterprise, his net worth represented a staggering 2% of America's entire GDP. This is the remarkable story of how one Scottish immigrant, possessing merely 5 years of formal education, ascended from complete poverty to become the planet's wealthiest man. Carnegie wasn't born on American soil. His story begins across the Atlantic Ocean in Dunfermline, Scotland, where he experienced what could only be characterized as crushing poverty. His mother labored endlessly, sewing shoes while his father produced cloth and materials, using traditional hand-weaving looms. That continued until steam-powered looms revolutionized the textile industry. With weaving technology rapidly advancing, his father's loom business collapsed. Watching his father suffer as he desperately sought employment would impact young Carnegie profoundly, shaping his lifelong comprehension of economic vulnerability and the transformative power of technological change. In 1848, the Carnegies embarked on their perilous journey to America, the legendary land of opportunity. After selling all their meager possessions and borrowing £20, the family set sail for what they hoped would represent a new beginning. They eventually settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the nation's manufacturing hub, but quickly discovered they couldn't escape hardship in their new country. With both parents struggling to secure work, Andrew had no choice but to abandon school to support his family. He finally caught relief from the scorching heat of boiler rooms when he landed employment at a local telegraph office. As a messenger boy, Carnegie delivered telegrams by bicycle throughout Pittsburgh. He memorized the faces of everyone he delivered to, greeting them by name when he encountered them outside work. This practice provided Carnegie with a unique opportunity to familiarize himself with the city's business community, building relationships that would prove invaluable later. At 17, Carnegie perfected his telegraph skills, becoming increasingly skilled at hearing Morse code. Impressively, he could recite messages without writing them down. This caught the attention of Thomas Scott, regional manager for the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, who hired Carnegie as his personal telegrapher and private secretary for $35 monthly. The Pennsylvania Railroad Company was the world's largest corporation at the time. For the business-savvy Carnegie, this represented an unparalleled opportunity, a front-row seat to observe how successful businesses operated. Tom Scott recognized Carnegie's potential and took the young man under his wing, mentoring him like a second father. Scott's advice to invest in stocks provided Carnegie with his first taste of capitalism. During the American Civil War, Carnegie was drafted into the Union but avoided combat by paying $850 for a substitute to take his place on the battlefield. Instead of fighting, Carnegie profited from the war. He noticed that wooden bridges were easily burned by troops and recognized a desperate need for iron bridges to replace them. Carnegie capitalized on this opportunity, launching the Keystone Bridge Company. But his next move demonstrated his astute business acumen. Keystone didn't just construct bridges, they owned their iron mills, providing the materials needed for construction. Owning the iron source meant Carnegie's bridge building company wouldn't depend on mining or extraction companies like their competitors. This vertical integration gave Carnegie complete control over the entire process, while dramatically improving profit margins. After bridges were constructed, he leveraged his railroad industry connections to generate additional revenue. Essentially, he operated 3 interconnected enterprises, each strengthening the others: a mining extraction company, a bridge building company using iron from his mines, and once bridges were completed, a third business selling rail transport services. Always seeking the next monumental opportunity, Andrew set his sights on New York City, the undisputed business capital of the world. In the city, he expected to discover a hustling culture and mingle with distinguished businessmen, but instead found profound disappointment. He described the wealthy individuals around him as nothing more than scoundrels. Carnegie wrote himself a heartfelt note, promising that when he turned 35, he would retire from business and focus entirely on making the world a better place. This noble note would remain tragically unfulfilled. In 1856, Henry Bessemer's revolutionary invention, the Bessemer converter, a distinctive pear-shaped furnace, enabled mass production of steel, something previously thought impossible. For the first time in human history, creating large steel structures became economically feasible, eventually birthing the first towering skyscrapers and forever transforming urban skylines across America. Carnegie moved with lightning speed, successfully building America's first steel plants. He hired the best engineers and architects money could buy, focusing maniacally on increasing efficiency, always implementing the latest technology, and pushing employees to their maximum physical and mental capabilities. He was notorious for requiring employees to work 364 days yearly, allowing rest only on July 4th. As technology advanced, he sought ways to replace workers with machines whenever possible. Unlike men, machines didn't need sleep, didn't demand raises, and certainly didn't attempt to unionize. Carnegie, a master salesman, named his venture not Carnegie Steel, but J. Edgar Thomson Steel Works. Carnegie hoped a steel mill bearing a customer's name would demonstrate appreciation for their business while securing additional orders from their railroad. The strategy worked brilliantly. Thomson's first order consisted of 2,000 steel rails. Naming mills after customers was more than a sales gimmick. It was part of a larger strategy of publicly showing appreciation for others. Such acts would continue paying massive dividends throughout Carnegie's career. To help run his steel mills, Carnegie brought aboard a cutthroat executive known for ruthlessness and attention to the bottom line, Henry Clay Frick. Together, Carnegie and Frick became a powerful, formidable force. Their ruthlessness is exemplified by the Duquesne Works story. With Frick's help, Carnegie spread rumors alleging that Duquesne's mill produced defective steel. Though untrue, Carnegie told Duquesne's railroad customers that their rails lacked homogeneity. Few understood the word's meaning, but that wasn't important. Carnegie used it because it sounded frightening enough to concern railroads worried about product quality. As Duquesne's sales slowed, they became unprofitable. To expedite their demise, Carnegie and Frick undercut Duquesne on pricing, further squeezing the company. Within 2 years, Duquesne's finances were ruined, forcing them to sell to Carnegie at bargain prices. For Frick and Carnegie, the rules were clear: do whatever it takes to win. This ruthlessness came with a hefty price. As discovered at their largest steel plant in Homestead, Pennsylvania, Carnegie had invested millions optimizing Homestead's efficiency, enabling it to produce more steel than any comparable mill. But one aspect remained unoptimized: labor costs. This posed a problem for Carnegie, who was rebranding his image from oppressive steel factory billionaire to champion of workers' rights. Instead of risking his reputation, he had Lieutenant Henry Frick execute the dirty work, while Carnegie traveled to Scotland, distancing himself from the inevitable conflict. In 1892, tensions between workers and mill owners reached critical heights. America's richest were accumulating fortunes faster than ever, while workers felt like property of the rich, believing their shrinking voice could only be heard through unions. Frick demanded increased factory production, meaning longer hours while simultaneously reducing wages. Longer hours and less pay brought Homestead to a boiling point. Workers also demanded safer working conditions for good reason. In 1888, 9% of all steelworkers died on the job. When workers refused Frick's aggressive demands, he locked out all employees and brought in immigrant workers willing to accept dangerous jobs for less pay. To escort these workers, Frick hired a 300-person army called the Pinkertons. Armed with rifles, they approached the factory where 10,000 angry strikers refused to surrender what they called home. Historians don't know who fired first, but the day became known not as the Homestead Strike, but the Homestead Massacre. By battle's end, 9 factory workers and 7 Pinkertons were dead. Hundreds were injured. Fighting was so extreme, the governor ordered 8,000 militia troops as backup. Under state troop protection, the factory reopened, with workers returning to lower pay, longer hours, and unchanged safety conditions. Homestead damaged Carnegie's reputation. Prior to the tragedy, he publicly advocated for better steel mill conditions and increased wages. But his words contradicted his actions. While preaching increased wages and improved safety, he simultaneously reduced labor costs by slashing paychecks and doing little to improve factory safety. Carnegie was widely called a coward for using Frick as his scapegoat. Despite tensions and animosity, steel mills continued thriving. By 1900, the company produced more steel than the entire nation of Great Britain. In 1901, Carnegie grew tired and wanted time with his wife and daughter, financier J.P. Morgan was rising as a steel industry competitor, and Carnegie, nearing 70, became open to selling the company he'd spent his life building. Carnegie wrote his asking price on scrap paper. Charles Schwab, Carnegie Steel's president, delivered the offer to Morgan. As the story goes, Morgan glanced at the offer and accepted without hesitation. Morgan bought Carnegie Steel for $480 million, making Carnegie the world's single richest man. Carnegie completely severed business ties, dedicating himself entirely to philanthropy. Not a single dollar would be left to his family. Having only 5 years of schooling, he had a soft spot for libraries, crediting them for his financial success. He donated over 2,500 libraries to cities worldwide. His generosity wasn't self-promotion. His name appeared on fewer than 500 libraries. Carnegie Hall, one of New York's most recognizable landmarks, exemplifies his generosity. Built in 1891, the Music Hall, it was renamed Carnegie Hall after his death by board members, not his request. From 1901 until his death in 1919 in Lenox, Massachusetts, Carnegie's full-time job was giving away the vast wealth he'd accumulated. Andrew Carnegie was indeed as complex as he was wealthy. Did he employ abusive labor techniques for maximum profit? Yes. Was he hypocritical? Absolutely. Did he spread slander to destroy competitors? Undoubtedly. Yet he also revolutionized American industry, built infrastructure that connected the nation, and ultimately gave away virtually his entire fortune to benefit humanity. Carnegie's story serves as a compelling example of how immense wealth can be both ruthlessly acquired and generously distributed, leaving us to grapple with the moral complexities of one of history's most influential industrialists.